It's not just the courts. I mean, as you may know, John, and I didn't call you from jail, but I was arrested a few weeks ago in a kind of civil disobedience, but not even really. I wasn't actually trying to be disobedient. So I take that back. It wasn't civil disobedience. There was a pro-Hamas demonstration near my house that I think probably violated some hate crime law, although I'm not a big fan of hate crime laws. I think there are other laws that should be prosecuted, from trespass, nuisance, uttering threats, assault, supporting a banned terrorist group. Those are all laws that I can get behind. But this astonishing hate crime, like reenactment of a terrorist leader, was nuts. And I went to photograph it, and the police arrested me, saying my presence was inciting the pro-Hamas people to breach the peace. Now, I know that that was unlawful, but I felt like I had to stand my ground. I was arrested and jailed for a few hours.
I saw the video clip. Yeah, I'm glad it was only a few hours, because it's sucks to be in jail. I spent 23 hours there myself, and to Merrill Each 49 days. But I'm sorry you had to spend even a few hours. It was disgraceful.
Well, thank you for that. But even that, these cops were telling law-abiding Canadians to back off. Because that was the path of least resistance. And I know that's not normal, because, John, I was recently at the riots in Amsterdam, and I go to Davos every year in Switzerland, where all these super important VVIPs are there. And the Dutch police and the Swiss police would never think of stopping a journalist. In fact, I was shocked by how helpful they were. Even in Amsterdam, there was an actual police action when I was there. And they just said, "Who are you with?" I said, "We're with the media." They said, "Okay." And then they went on to, in Canada, it's not just the judges. I think it's every element. You have partisan prosecutors. Judges are being taught to use pronouns. And if you misgender someone, you could throw a whole case. And police, I think, have downloaded that authoritarian nature. I can't believe how light touch the cops in Davos are every year when we're standing next to super important political leaders. In Canada, we get arrested routinely. It's not just the judges, is what I'm saying. It's the entire culture. I feel like that's changed over the course of the last 10 years.
Well, sadly, I have to agree with you. This is why, we've got our work cut out for us. And a big part of it is with the school system. I tell parents, if you are able to, and I know some parents cannot because of financial reasons or scheduling or whatever, but if you're able to, take your kids out of the public schools, put them in private school, homeschool them. If you're a grandparent, tell your kids that you will help them and support them, whether financially or otherwise, to get their kids out of these toxic places where they are obviously not learning. They're being taught what to think. They're not being taught how to think. And we see this, I've been seeing this for decades on university campuses. The people graduate from grade 12, they go to university, they can't think, they can't reason, they can't debate, they can't argue. All they can do is just get very angry when somebody says something that they disagree with, and they can't even articulate. They're not even capable of debate. So we need that change in the education. That's a big part of it. It's going to take time. We're not going to change that in weeks or months. It's going to take years and decades. And we got to reclaim our freedoms, because, as Jordan Peterson once said, one of his talks a year and a half ago, I can't remember when it was, but he said, slaves look to tyrants to give them meaning and purpose in life and direction and how to live and what to think. And tyrants look to slaves to be empowered. But if you have educated, awake, responsible adults as citizens, it's very hard for tyranny to take root.
I saw Francois Legault, the Premier of Quebec, a few weeks ago, react to a scene where a lot of pro-Hamas protesters were taking over a public street. And there were also other scenes of taking over other public places, including actually outside the Notre Dame Basilica, which is the major cathedral in that city. And I've seen similar things in my city of Toronto. I see the pro-Hamas people block very important roads. One's called the Gardner Expressway. They often block downtown intersections. And one of the things they do is they then have a little prayer. They have an Islamic style prayer right on the street. They just sort of bend down and kneel and bow down and say, we're praying now. Don't you dare move us. And to me, that's an act of domination. There's 100 mosques in the Toronto area. Feel free to pray all you want on the mosque. Pray even in a park, I suppose. I mean, if you're not bugging anyone. But to block a street, and I can imagine how frustrating that was. And Legault had these comments to make when he saw some of this. Here, take a look.
Ben moi, de voir du monde à genoux dans la rue à faire des prières, je pense qu'il faut se poser la question. Je pense pas que c'est quelque chose qu'on devrait voir.
Mais est-ce que vous pouvez légiférer là-dessus?
C'est ce qu'on regarde. C'est ce qu'on regarde actuellement.
I think he was reacting to something that he didn't like, which I don't like either. I think it's the domination of public space and the violation of various laws. But I think he reached for the wrong tool there. I think what these pro-Hamas people are doing is weaponizing their religion, daring you to move them for the offense. It might be a bylaw offense. You can't block a street. You can't do something religious while you're blocking a street to make it lawful suddenly. So I think Legault realized that they were being cheeky and taking advantage and sort of playing the race card there. And he wanted to stop that. But instead of insisting that they just clear the street, he was going after the religious aspect. And I agree that they're doing it for political purposes. They're infusing their law breaking with religion to sort of dare you to arrest them for it, and then they'll claim discrimination. So what they're doing is odious. But I think that Legault, if he was serious about stopping that, he would have, over the last 14 months, gone after them for trespass, nuisance, mischief, vandalism, uttering threats. There's some cases where you're wearing a mask while committing a crime. That's an offense additionally. Tell me what your thoughts are, because I know that the Justice Center recently sent a demand letter to Premier Legault. What's your take on things regarding these mass protests in the streets?
So freedom of expression does not authorize you to block traffic, does not, in my view, authorize you to close borders. When the Coots protests in Alberta and the Windsor one, the Justice Center didn't speak out and say, yeah, you can stop economic activity. You cannot prevent people from going to work. You cannot prevent people from going, entering into and leaving their buildings where they work. You cannot obstruct streets. And so as a passionate defender of campus free speech, when the Justice Center first started in 2010, I'd say close to half of our cases were campus free speech cases. We still do a lot of this work, but now it's not half. Now it's down to a tenth, just because we've grown and taken on so much other stuff. So I'm a passionate believer in campus free speech. I also applauded the dismantling of these tent cities. Your freedom of speech does not extend to putting up a permanent or quasi-permanent, something that goes on for days or weeks or months, and you have your tent city. No, it's quite reasonable for the university to say, you can put up your display from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. or 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., whatever, but you got to take it down. And that space is a public space that other people can use. So what you need to do is crack down hard on enforce the existing laws. So if you are shutting down traffic, that even there's criminal code provision as well that can be applicable. It's certainly against Ontario's provincial legislation to block traffic. Guaranteed. Enforce the law and arrest these people. If it's a provincial offense, give them a ticket. If it's criminal, handcuff them, take them off to jail, and so on. Enforce the existing laws, and then also, leave the space for law-abiding, peaceful expression, like on a public sidewalk, where you can stand there with your sign, no matter how hateful it is or is perceived to be.